Hello, everybody. This is Anthony for Investors Underground. Today, it's a pleasure for me to get to sit down and speak with Suman Chepuri. He is a technology professional who became a full-time trader. He is also the founder and general partner at Lakeside Capital. Suman has been trading equities for over 20 years. After finding success using his momentum and hedging strategies, Suman founded Lakeside Capital in 2021 in order to offer his success to other investors. His fund now manages over $13 million and has over 80 clients, and is handily beating the market this year. You can follow him on Twitter at Roving Eyes and on LinkedIn. Hello, Suman. Thank you for being here and taking the time to speak with me today.
Thank you, Anthony. It's a pleasure.
Suman, it's great to see you again. I know we first met earlier this year at Traders for a Cause, and it's great that we now get a chance to sit down and I can learn more about you.
Yes, it was great meeting you. It was such a cool conference. Got to meet with some amazing traders. So, I'm glad to continue the conversation here.
Absolutely. So if it's okay with you, Suman, I'd love to just start by asking, how you first got interested in the stock market and trading.
Sure. Yeah, this was, I was just fresh out of college. This was like 99. And, the dot-com bubble, nobody could ignore it, right? The tech stocks, especially me being a computer science major, it was exciting to see all these companies like Cisco and Global Crossing and Applied Materials, those were the big names in those days. I used to follow them. And of course, I had a little bit of money to play with the market. So I went in and tried it. Didn't end very well, but it was a good introduction for me to the stock market.
Yeah. So do you remember some of the early trades that you took, and how did that pan out the first time that you tried trading? Was it immediate success, or was it sort of hit and miss for you?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know much about trading. I was basically probably watching, some CNBC stuff or, reading some blogs. So I didn't even know how to read a balance sheet at that time, so I wouldn't know any fundamentals. I would basically kind of go with the crowd and trade. I remember trading, stuff like pets.com and Webvan and, of course, Cisco. Did well in the beginning because everything was going up, just like in 2020 post-COVID. But of course, didn't end very well. I probably ended up losing, maybe $10,000 to $15,000. Fortunately, I didn't have a lot of money to lose, but it was a very good introduction to the stock market for me.
In the early days, what were some of the initial resources or the best resources that you found that had a great influence on you, and when you eventually started to become profitable as a trader? What was that like?
So back in the beginning, like in 99, when I said in 99, 2000, Yahoo Finance used to be the big thing. So of course, it still remains to be a decent resource, but I've evolved. Of course, took a break. I was doing a little bit of swing trading now and then, but then 2008, 2009 is when I kind of, got back into it when, we had the big financial crisis opportunity. So that was the first time I actually took advantage, So at that time, I was a little bit more, structured. I had, learned a lot of lessons, figured out some technical analysis, figured out how to read balance sheets, basic stuff like that. That helped, and got involved with some of the chat rooms. So that was how, I kind of got back into it. And I think I was a more informed trader / investor at that point.
When you were working full time, were you also trading part time, or did you sort of stop trading for a while until you had more time?
So I was, I guess you could call it trading part-time because I was doing swing trading, so I would check the codes and read up on the news when I could during the day and, place some orders and check on stuff when I could, whether come back home or whatever. So I don't know if you really call that part-time trading, but I was doing something.
Suman, you enjoyed a successful career in the corporate world. Did any of those experiences have an influence or an effect on your trading?
I think so. Yeah. I think, corporate America is a great teacher to be organized and be disciplined and, get some structure around things, research and things like that. So I definitely credit, my long career at Verizon, for some of those skills. And, they're very transferable. So later on, when I started doing this more seriously, it became a more serious hobby, like about 2007 timeframe, like I mentioned, I could, basically port a lot of those skills. So definitely it was useful.
Suman, I wanted to talk a little bit about your trading style. So, what are some of your strategies in terms of trading? And are you more of a long or a short seller? What type of strategies are you employing? Are you all intraday these days, or are you now more of a swing trader?
Yeah, so I would say, my style has evolved. And right now, I used to do mostly swing trading, as I mentioned, but now I continue to do swing trading. But because I'm doing this full time, I get a lot more opportunity to trade. So what I do is a lot of intraday trades. And those are usually, your small cap momentum stocks, which, usually tend to have a lot of volatility. So, I tend to do well on short side, parabolic moves and things like that, but I also do a lot of long trades. I tend to do some bottom scoops based on, the charts, previous support levels and things like that, and those do well. For example, I scooped some a DLO this morning, at 9:05. So it was kind of a fun trade. I exited a little over 12. So it was a nice quick trade. But yeah, I do those two trade styles. And I also do a lot of ETFs, again, mostly on the swing side.
And do you tend these days to have a different type of strategy compared to when you were a retail trader, just trading your own portfolio?
I think so, yeah, because when I was a retail trader, my portfolio size was much smaller. Now that I'm dealing with over $13 million of client funds, I have to take bigger positions and trades of higher conviction to move the needle. So what I typically do is try to understand really well about the overall market direction. So I'm watching SPY and QQQ and WIX, like a hawk all day, try to figure out the overall direction. And I'm also looking at all the macroeconomic stuff, right? Obviously, the quantitative tightening and the rate increases the Fed is doing has a huge impact. So I'm looking at that. I'm looking at sector rotation. So based on some of those, elements, and also some of the things on the economic calendar, when is the CPI coming out? What is my gut feeling about that? So I will take these trades. So, based on that, I'm able to move the fund in the right direction, and it's been doing very well.
In terms of some of your hedging strategies, how did you learn about those and what do those generally look like?
So hedging strategies I typically do again ETFs. So if I feel the market is overbought, for example, last week when SPY went to 403, 404, it was getting close to the 200-day moving average. So I knew that there was going to be a big resistance. So I started adding, the hedges, basically bear ETFs like, SPXS, SQQQ, SOXS, stuff like that, which are going to give you a quick bang for your buck, when your, conviction turns out to be right.
And what type of setups interest you the most? Is there a particular, sector? I know you had mentioned, like the SPY or QQQ and ETFs. Are those sort of some of the names that you like to trade, or is it a combination of those and some individual stocks?
Yeah, I would say it's a combination. Definitely those ETFs really help me, gauge or take positions based on the technical levels, overall SPY, QQQ, so on. Excuse me. But I also, the shorter term trades like your momentum stocks, like Coin or Carvana or Tesla, those I would do a lot of intraday trades, or maybe a swing trade overnight for a couple of days. Basically, ride the trend and, exit. And of course, like I mentioned, when the small cap momentum stocks are giving the opportunity, the parabolic moves and things like that, I'm waiting for the right time to hit it.
Suman, I'd love to talk a little bit about Lakeside Capital and your fund. So,
Yeah.
what was the inspiration to start Lakeside Capital? And where did you initially get the capital and your clients?
So yeah, thank you. Really excited about this new venture I started earlier this year. As I mentioned, I became a professional full-time trader last year, after quitting a corporate job. So it was a big pivot, moving from hardcore IT stuff, and management stuff to, trading full-time. But it's the best decision I made. I love it. I look forward to waking up every morning. I'm excited. And as you mentioned in the prelude, so since I was starting to see the success, a lot of my friends and family around me started asking me, "Hey, Suman, can you just take our money and trade it for us?" And while that was a nice thing for them to say, obviously I was not set up for it, right? I couldn't legally accept their money. I didn't have the licensing and all that. So after saying no to like a bunch of people, I was like, you know what, why am I doing this? This looks like a great opportunity. Since I'm going to do this full time anyway, might as well figure out how to accept the funds. So I talked to a securities attorney who walked me through all the paperwork for the hedge fund, and we got that all structure set up, registered the companies. At the same time, I started preparing for my Series 65 FINRA license exam and got through that. And started with basically $100,000 of my own money in January of this year, and started slowly building the momentum, and it's been a great ride. The fund is up over 40%, so that's generated a lot of excitement, especially a year like this when the indexes are struggling. And I've been adding clients steadily every single month, and clients are happy, and I'm happy.
That's great news, and I'm sure your family and friends are excited as well.
Yes.
And what are some of your goals for the firm?
So the goal, I really don't know. I don't have a number in mind or anything. I'm basically excited. I'm having fun. Um, I might launch a second fund next year based on the success I'm having now, because there are some regulatory restrictions. I cannot accept more than 99 clients on this fund. So that is primarily the reason I'm going to probably open a second fund with slightly different strategies, include options trading, position trading, and things like that. But yeah, I really don't have a number. I want to continue growing this, and hopefully, start, partnering with somebody else who shares my passion, a fellow trader who can join the team and grow this. I mean, it'd be nice to have like a big number, like 100 million in the next couple of years, but I don't really have a goal per se.
And what are some of the investment strategies that you use at Lakeside Capital? And how do you deploy your funds on any given investment idea or trade?
Yeah, so it's the same strategies we just talked about. I'm looking at momentum trades. I'm looking at ETF sector rotations. A lot of it is like technical analysis based. Looking at support, resistance, VWAP, price, volume, that sort of thing. But I'm also trying to be very careful with my risk management, because that's paramount when you're dealing with client funds. So my typical position size, at least in the beginning, is about 1%. So, typically about $100,000 trade. But then I will build on it as I have a very high conviction. And, I can go as high as 10% of the size of the fund, and, basically make the right risk reward decisions.
And do you keep a certain amount of capital allocated in cash just if in case you need it?
At any given time, on a typical day, I would say I have at least about, $4 or $5 million in cash, sometimes much higher, because, only my swing positions need to use the capital. If I'm doing intraday positions, I'm back into cash in those. So I don't really need to use all the cash. And I prefer keeping like that, even though it may feel like, I'm not using my own capital fully, because, I mean, as part of risk management, you need to have plenty of cash, especially when you're trading some of those small cap squeezers, So I do not want to take a chance ever of getting into any kind of trouble. So I keep plenty of cash.
And what is the role of like the fund administrator and the auditor and the CPA for your firm? How does that all work?
The biggest part or the back office part of running the fund is having a good fund administrator. So this is a company that would basically onboard my clients, check all the paperwork, do the anti-money laundering checks, all that good stuff, accept the money, deposit the funds, make sure the source of income is correct, legit and all that. And, they also take care of the whole investor portal, which is a big thing. My investors can log in any given time. And every single day, there is a update, so about 8 o'clock in the morning, they can see what their balance is, so they know basically the closing balance of the previous day every morning. So they like that transparency, and I'm glad the fund administrator can provide that. They directly download the reports from my broker and upload it into the portal. So it's pretty seamless. So they provide a big service for me, and they also take care of adding new capital, redemptions, if somebody wants to leave the fund, all of that stuff. So it takes up a lot of work. And then the second key player for daily operations, I wouldn't call it really daily operations, is basically, more like towards the end of the year, is the tax auditor, who will generate the K1, which is basically your income statement for the investment. And they will basically, take all the reports from the broker, make sure, all the P's and Q's check out, all the balances check out, the compliance part. Basically with these two key players, the tax accountant and the fund administrator, it makes it pretty easy for me to just focus on the trading and, take care of investors.
It sounds like these extra players all help you stay within compliance and within regulations and things like that.
Yes.
And I would imagine it would be very difficult to function, and maybe you couldn't even function without them.
No, you not only you could not function, but it's actually a legal requirement, because you need to have a third-party independent fund administrator, especially after Madoff. It's a law now. And I'm glad it is, because now that industry has really developed, and they're matured, and they can handle all these requests very smoothly.
I wanted to ask a couple questions about managing money for others, especially because you were trading your own portfolio at one point. So,
That's right.
what are some of the biggest differences that you noticed between, trading for oneself as a retail trader and taking trades for others and managing others' portfolio?
Good question, Anthony. Really, that was actually probably my number one learning curve since I started the fund. As you can imagine, with your own money, you can kind of do whatever you want, and nobody's going to question you, right? And we as traders, tend to do that, and it is what it is. But it's actually a good thing that since I started the fund, I'm more accountable, right? Like I mentioned, I have an online portal where my investors can check their balances every day. So if the account is going crazy, obviously I'm going to start getting some calls or texts, and I don't want that, right? And I don't want them to worry about it either. So definitely my risk management has improved over the last 10 months since I started the fund. I am a little bit more disciplined, and I'm also more cognizant of the fact that hey, this is a big responsibility, that I cannot be reckless or cannot take unnecessary risks. So I think all that's actually been good for the fund.
Are there certain trades that you are prohibited from taking, or that you would second guess taking as a fund manager compared to when you were just managing your own funds?
Not exactly. I mean, I mostly trade equities, so I'm still allowed to trade equities. Basically, whatever you include in the fund, in the PPM, which is a private placement memorandum, you're allowed to do it, So the only thing I cannot do is futures, because futures trading actually requires a separate license. And I'm not a futures trader anyway. That's not my cup of tea. So I mostly do equities, and I do a little bit of options now and then. So, so from a legal or perspective or anything, it's a guidelines of the fund. Yeah, there's no restrictions.
Are you always looking for more capital and more clients, or is there a particular pace that you would like to grow at?
I think at this point, I am looking for more capital and more clients, because I'm still in a very initial growth phase. Okay. I'm sure you've heard, funds like Appaloosa or Maverick, so all these guys are multi-billion-dollar funds. So obviously, I'm not even, a grain of salt next to those guys. So it's going to take me a long time to get to a place where I feel like my strategy is cannot do justice to the capital. So yeah, I'm still in a growth phase, and it's been fun talking to clients and see if they're willing to adopt my strategy for investment.
And do you have any advice for others who might be interested in managing funds?
I think it's a very exciting journey, a lot of potential, because I think if you can really scale your strategies to manage several $1 million, this is like the most fun thing to do. The advice, of course, I would give is that make sure that you're very transparent with your clients, because my style of trading, for example, is very aggressive. So I tell my clients up front that, hey, if I'm making 40+% in this year, guess what? I'm taking more risk too, more risk, more reward, right? So, and, for that reason, I actually accept money only from high net worth individuals, so that's actually a part of my funds requirement. They call it a qualified client. That actually makes it easier because I'm working with clients who understand the risk that they're taking, and they don't mind, if I take more aggressive risk and, shorting techniques and things like that, which are not normal or common bit for mutual fund managers or anybody. So yeah, and then understand all the working pieces, figure out a good fund administrator, get your license, find a good tax auditor, and then you'll be ready. And make sure that you have a network to start with, because if you don't have a network of high net worth individuals, it might be difficult for you to get started. So make sure that you network with the right kind of people.
Great. I think that's great advice. And if you could give yourself some advice, today compared to when you first started, what advice would you give yourself?
I think that my only advice to myself is risk management. I think I should have, I had a couple of bad trades in the beginning, especially in March when the big oil squeeze happened. And I didn't have the right stop losses. So, in retrospect, I should have done a better job. I think I am doing a better job now. And I'm also moving away from trading too many small caps, which, tend to be very volatile, and trying to trade more mid cap and large cap, which is, they still give you the range, but, I think they're a little bit better and easier and more liquid to trade. So that's my transition being.
And are there any fund managers that you look up to or that inspire you?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I don't know anybody personally, but just from reading, I know there are a lot of good fund managers, like Carl Icahn. He's somebody I follow and look up to. Steve Cohen, SAC Capital, Lee Hensley, he's with the Maverick Funds here in Dallas. So a lot of amazing stories. I try to read books on how these really good traders, started their funds and, grew so big. So it's very inspiring and exciting to read those stories.
Suman, if it's okay, I'd like to ask you, like a lightning round set of questions, quick answers, if that's okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Great. So, what do you consider to be your greatest strength as a trader?
I think the nimbleness, I try to adapt to the market as it changes. When the facts change, I change my position, because sometimes people become adamant and they want to stick to their guns. I'm not like that. When I know that I'm wrong, I'm happy to, change directions and do the right thing.
What do you consider to be some of the greatest, maybe, misconceptions that people might have about those who manage funds?
Misconception, maybe, people maybe think it's very hard to get started. I think it's, not that hard. It's not very easy, but it's not as hard as they might think as well. And also, I think, people think like, it's a fun, glamorous job. Maybe they're watching billions on TV, that fun show. But, of course, there are moments where it's very stressful. You have your ups and downs. But I think, with proper risk management, you can sleep better. And try to be very transparent. When you have nothing to hide, it makes it much easier for everybody.
And what's the greatest investment or trading advice that you've ever been given?
I got some very good advice from Nate, who I consider as my good friend now, from all the interactions through the IU chats and some of the personal conversations we've had. I have become a better trader, for example, be more patient, try to do backside trades, and, shift from small caps to mid caps and large caps. So, I think doing these things really improve your longevity and, overall, success rate as well.
And do you have any general investment or financial advice for traders out there listening?
General financial advice I would say is before I became a full-time trader, I, know how risky this job is. You can blow out your account with one bad trade. So, for me, firstly, I had a very good job, so I had to give up a, $250,000 job to, get into full-time trading. But that was okay because I wanted to do something I was really passionate about, and this was what it was for me. I felt like it was a calling. But, I was also, practical about it, so I wanted to make sure I had enough savings in my bank account, separate account for, margin calls, that sort of thing. And also, fortunately, my wife, she has a very good job. So, she has a steady income and, she's got good health benefits with her company. So made it easy for me to make that transition. And my kids are a little bit older, so they don't need a lot of my time. So I felt like, the timing was right for me to, take a stab at this so that I don't have a regret later on.
And what has been your most memorable moment so far on your trading journey?
Well, I don't know if I can pinpoint at one. Trading is like a series of small victories and a few losses, right? I think we all have been there. Obviously, when you have a high conviction for a trade and it goes well, it's very rewarding and it's a great feeling. Just for example, a couple of weeks ago, I was trading IMUX, based on all the research I'd done, I was reading the press reports, I knew that, the FDA was not going to, approve their drug. And I took a big short position. So that was a nice win, I made almost a 7-figure profit on that. So being able to get those big wins once in a while, you can call them home runs, is great. But of course, the risk management is also important. So I try not to go for too many home runs anymore. I used to do that. And of course, one of them will blow up in your face and it's not a good thing. So, yeah.
What have been some of the biggest upsides for you being able to manage money for others?
I think the upside is a great feeling, because now that, I have several friends who have become investors, I feel good and they're really happy that, especially a tough year like this, I'm able to navigate their money and actually grow their money. So it's fun, so, and I also, just enjoy any aspect about finance. I help people in general with advice on what to do with their own personal portfolio, their 401ks, Roth IRAs, or whatever it is, even like insurance, for example. I think insurance is a big thing that a lot of traders ignore, so I try to tell that to my friends and clients. I, in fact, offer them free 1-hour sessions to analyze everything about their finances, and give them my advice. So it's a great, fulfillment. It's a happy feeling that you're able to actually help somebody, because many cases folks have not really thought of an important aspect, especially things like insurance, because it can be an investment vehicle as well as, safety for your family. So, they thanked me a lot saying that, hey, if it were not for you, I would never have thought of this. And, time would have just gone by and would have been too late. So it's good to help others.
That's great, and that's an interesting point. I think many traders might not be thinking about things
Yeah,
such as insurance. Do you think that day traders should also be investing some of their funds?
I think so. Yeah. I have a Roth IRA account that I consider more long term. So I do have a couple of long-term positions, but again, my style of trading is so short-term that it's hard for me to really do long-term investing, especially when I know the nature of the market, right? For example, right now we know quantitative tightening and rate increases are going to continue for at least another, 3 to 6 months. So, given that choppiness, I might just, decide to just stay in money market, which is basically like cash and earn 2%. It's better than, seeing your portfolio go down. But I think it's a good idea. The other advantage with that is, because it's in a Roth IRA or IRA, you cannot touch that money. So it turns out to be a good safety net for your retirement as well.
And do you have any recommendations in terms of resources, whether that's books or other potential resources, where traders can learn how to invest and get an understanding of what you do and how you trade?
Sure. So I probably haven't read a lot of books, because everything these days is online. But a couple of books that I've read is like the Market Wizard series, a guy who does interviews with really good traders. I find that really good read, and you kind of learn about different styles of trading as well. And not just stock trading, but commodities and bonds and all kinds of things. It's kind of interesting and fascinating to learn about those traders and their success. But most of my resources are online. For breaking news, I'm looking at Benzinga, or of course, I'm in the IU chat room. So that usually turns out to be the best place to get all your breaking news. Twitter, of course, Twitter is an excellent resource. A lot of good people that you can follow, not only for breaking news and analysis, but good advice in terms of overall trading and things like that. Like I follow Mike Bellafiore, he's a great coach. So folks like that, and you read about articles like like Seeking Alpha and things like that as well. So yeah.
Great. And are there any particular technical indicators or timeframes that you look at on your charts in order to help you come up with trade ideas or set support and resistance levels?
Yeah, I'm typically, for intraday, I usually use like a 5 minute candle chart. But if it is a stock that's moving really fast with, a lot of volume, I'll switch to 1 minute. And it'll be the, same, indicators, it's price, volume, support, resistance, VWAP. I try not to complicate things. I think those are usually good enough to see where the price and volume is, basically dictating the trade, and for something longer term, especially earnings season and all that, I look at the daily charts, that helps you, look behind and see, what are the different support levels and things like that, or resistance levels.
What is one area in your trading that you would like to improve on?
In this business, you can never be complacent, because the market is always evolving, right? It's never the same, you have to keep up with the market. So, I think trying to understand that big picture, not just the trends, but also the macro impact on that, is very important to keep learning. And, again, I think Twitter is a great resource. I follow some smart people in their commentary to understand that. And, risk management, I think that's, again, a continuous evolvement, figuring out how to manage your losses, how to, cut short your losses, that's going to be a continuous evolution as well. So those are the things I'm going to keep focusing on.
And are there any things that you do, Suman, away from the desk that help you as a trader, whether that's just exercise or diet, trading coach, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I do try to, exercise at least a couple of times a week. I should do more, I know. And try to, eat fairly healthy. But then, I'm a foodie, so I love eating out, especially on the weekends. There are parties and, nice restaurants to go try. But yeah, I wouldn't say that I do anything extraordinary, but, I definitely want to get better at those things, take care of my health more. And, that of course, is very important because you need a lot of physical stamina too to endure like, 8 to 10 hours of training every day, right? So I think physical fitness goes hand in hand with the mental fitness. I do not have a, trading coach, but, I don't know, I feel like I don't know someone who can really help me. If I can find, maybe I would get their help. But I think right now I'm okay. I think trying to stay level-headed and stay focused.
In terms of what your average day looks like, managing a fund, um, can you give us some insight? What does that look like? Are you on the phone a great majority of the day? Are you, actually entering and exiting trades and being in a position? What does that look like? The typical, if there even is a typical sort of, 9 to 5 or day for you.
Yeah, yeah. So my typical day is like during the trading hours. I'm a trader. You know, I'm in Dallas. So I'm in Central Time Zone. So I wake up about 6 o'clock and get started fairly soon after that, and catch up with the pre-market news. And if there's some pre-market activity, try to participate in those trades. And then the days goes on. Once the day kicks off. So middle of the day, around noon or so, when things tend to slow down a little bit, that's when I'll try to get back to any emails or anything with my fund administrator or any of my clients, take care of download the reports for the day, look at investor activity and things like that. But typical day, Monday through Friday, when the market is open, is I'm a trader primarily. So the fund manager part actually kicks in, when I'm not trading. So typically in the evenings, if I have a prospective client or an existing client who wants to talk about it or talk or meet, I will meet them for dinner or a drink or something. But my clients are kind of all over the place. I have folks in Atlanta, New Jersey, and Florida, and Boston, Seattle, Bay Area. So most of those folks, I'm just doing phone calls or maybe a Zoom session, just like this one. So, and the weekends, is again, the opportunity when I usually get a chance to call and do these Zoom calls. And, sometimes I'll have like a webinar for some of my prospective clients where I talk about the fund and explain them my journey, my strategies, the performance and all that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it feels like I'm working all the time, but trust me, I'm having so much fun, so it doesn't feel like work. So I'm loving it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great to hear. And
Yeah.
Suman, for anybody who's listening that wants to learn more about you or your trading style or Lakeside Capital, how can they do so?
Well, thank you, Anthony. So yeah, a couple of different ways, lakesidefunds.com, that's my website. And you will have all my social media links over there as well. You can call me, text me, email me, follow me on Twitter at Roving Eyes. I'm also active on LinkedIn, so that's another place you can catch some of my posts. So many ways to reach me. So hopefully, if any of you want to learn more about the fund or learn about investing in the fund, please reach out to me. We'd love to talk to you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Suman, for taking the time to speak with me today. It's been a pleasure learning more about you and your fund.
Thank you very much, Anthony. It was a real pleasure. And this is my first interview since I became a fund manager. So this is exciting. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. And this was a lot of fun sharing my journey with you.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell. Thanks for watching.